Hey guys, Dr. Brandon Schreiner here with Revive Chiropractic. I want to personally welcome you to our Juicing and Detox Challenge. If you're tuning in via Facebook, stay tuned next week as we continue this journey. If you're tuning in via the website, make sure you click the link below to access our second video. I've got a lot of information to cover today, so let's get right into it. You know, the main question that we have to ask ourselves when we're starting any journey in life, especially when it comes to health, is are we healthy? Where we live at right now, are we truly a healthy country? And the reality is that we're not. When you look at the statistics, I was just reading from the Center for Disease Control that literally 4 out of 10 individuals have a chronic illness. And really a chronic illness can be anything from heart disease to cancer to diabetes, Alzheimer's. I mean, we live in one of the sickest countries in the world, but yet we have access to all kinds of healthcare. So where's the issue? And the issue lies in the fact that we really don't know what health is. I mean, if I were to ask you, are you healthy or are you sick? You would say yes or no, and you'd base it off 2 things, how I look and how I feel. In our culture, we're trained to, if we don't feel good, we go to a doctor, we get a medication, we get something to treat our symptoms, but that doesn't actually allow us to heal. Just because you're symptom-free doesn't mean that you're healthy. Just because you don't have cancer doesn't mean you're not building cancer. Just because you don't have diabetes right now doesn't mean the lifestyle that you're on isn't going to set you up for diabetes in the end. So this challenge is to truly begin to bring health, hope, and wholeness to you and your family so you can live to your potential. And I guess the real question is that what is true health? And it's actually in the word, and it means to heal, right? An individual who's healthy is healing well. That doesn't mean that, you know, that person's not going to have a sore back or a sniffle every once in a while, but that person's going to adapt and recover. A healthy individual is not going to get cancer. A healthy individual is not going to have heart disease. A healthy individual is not going to have depression. And if you do have those things, we've got to begin to find the cause to be able to fight those and combat it. And we're going to walk through that today. And really, I always tell patients all the time, you've really got 2 different choices, right? And the reason why it is that our medical system, our current medical system is failing so miserably is because we're very reactive, right? We live in a very reactive state. Like we do all these things bad, and then we wait until we get a symptom, and then we treat the symptom. It's a very reactive versus proactive. Whether or not you have a symptom or not, it's always a good time for you to do a detox. Whether or not you have a symptom or not, we know that we're supposed to exercise. We're supposed to eat good food. We're supposed to, drink plenty of water. We're supposed to keep toxins out of our body. But we don't do those when we're already in a disease state. We do those now when we don't have disease, and that's the best prevention there is. So don't be reactive, because reactive lands us in the average American takes 7 to 11 different medications. I mean, I read in the Journal of Pediatrics that 1 out of 10 children is on an antipsychotic in our traditional world today. In our American medical system, 1 out of 10 kids are taking antipsychotic. It's absolutely insane versus being proactive, right? Let's eating and living the 5 essentials, like working on our mindset, getting our nervous system taken care of, getting adjusted, making sure our brain's communicating to the rest of our body, eating good whole food, exercising on a regular basis, not to lose weight, but to begin that healing process and to learn to, number 5 in the 5 essentials is to detox. Like, it's important to detox whether or not you have an issue or not, because the body in the world we live in today is so very toxic emotionally, it's toxic relationally, it's toxic physically, and so all those things we're going to cover. When you think of a detox and you think of chronic illness, the word that comes to mind is inflammation. The National Institute of Health says that if there's one thing that contributes to all chronic illness, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, whatever it may be, it's the word inflammation. Now, inflammation is a natural process inside the body that was put there innately to defend you and to heal tissue. For instance, if you fall on your knee, you're going to get this massive red swollen area because initially in an acute response, that inflammation is there to help the joint repair, You have what we call a cytokine response, which, these cytokine response, they munch on scar tissue and they help break down and help the tissue heal. The problem with chronic illness is that when that inflammatory process is constantly going on inside the body and we're not doing anything proactively to shut it off, the body goes into a state of just absolute breakdown, and that's what we call autoimmunity. The body begins to attack itself, aka my blood sugar is chronically high, aka I have cancer, and then eventually, type 3 diabetes, they call it Alzheimer's, right? So everything leads back to inflammation. So everything that we're going to be doing in this juicing and detox challenge is going to be aimed towards lowering inflammation. And here's the reality: whether or not you're overweight or on weight, everybody can use to have less inflammation in their body. Now, I call these like the core four of things that we're really going to be attacking in this first video. Is that, inflammation, we know it's a huge factor in chronic illness, but what are some things that we can do to combat it? And so we're going to talk about how juicing boosts the antioxidants within our body. What are antioxidants and how do they actually combat free radical production? The other thing is juicing lowers just overall disease risk, right? I mean, being in an anti-inflammatory state lowers our risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which if type 2 diabetes aren't combated early, it turns into type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's. So having a low sugar kind of juicing detoxification lifestyle is a great way to set yourself up for success and not disease. Also, one of my favorites is I think that juicing actually helps to heal the gut. A lot of the times we have got these autoimmune conditions, we've got blood sugar issues, we've got chronic pain and irritation because our guts are destroyed. And so juicing allows our guts to heal and repair. If you've ever heard of the term leaky gut, we're going to talk about that in depth and how juicing is amazing for that. Also, it just aids in weight loss. I've got some really interesting research from the American Cancer Institute talking about women that increase 2 skirt sizes a year increases their risk of breast cancer by 50%, right? So we have to think about, getting our body weight onto a normal state, because that's just going to help us in all aspects of our health. And we're going to talk about that. The first thing that I want to talk about is antioxidants. When you think of antioxidants, you think of fresh fruits and vegetables, which is why juicing is an amazing way. Smoothies is an amazing way to get all these antioxidants into the body to be able to combat what we call free radical production. So what is a free radical? A free radical is anything that kind of comes into the body as a toxin. So for instance, the air we breathe, the medication that we take, all the inflammation inside the body, all these free radicals coming in. And what happens is you have a cell, and on the outside of the cell you have these receptors. Well, the more that the free radicals get to the outside of those cells and block those receptors, it decreases the ability for that cell to actually detox, for good things to come in and for bad things to come out. And so if I've got a ton of free radical production, and I'm not eating a good, healthy, vibrant diet full of antioxidants, then that free radical production actually decreases the ability for that cell to die. And we all know that if our cells don't die and replicate and lay down healthy new tissue, that's called cancer, right? So in juicing institutes and raw food cancer institutes all around the world, one thing they use to combat cancer is juicing, because the amazing benefits of antioxidants. So when you think of juice, you think of antioxidants. Antioxidants come into the body and they help strip those free radicals off those receptor sites so your body can begin to cellularly detox and bring in good things like oxygen on a regular basis. The other thing, that we want to talk about is just the fact that, juicing lowers your risk of disease. We talked about inflammation. Inflammation inside your body is okay in short spouts. If I fell on my elbow, it's okay. But however, if I'm chronically inflamed, if I'm chronically eating things like, complex carbohydrates and sugar, if I'm constantly stressed, like we'll talk about later, if I constantly have a tiger chasing after me and I'm in this kind of fight or flight sympathetic response, if I'm constantly doing things that are spiking my blood sugar and creating chronic inflammation, my body just finally says, you know what, I'm done with you. I'm sick and tired of fighting all the time. My wife and I were talking about this the other day. Imagine having to go to work and do your job for 20 days straight, but yet not having any sleep, and then having horrible food on top of that. most of us would never be able to make it that long because we're exhausted. Well, your body does the same exact thing after years and years of damage and toxins and all kinds of medication and inflammation. Your body just says, you know what, I'm done with you. I can't do this anymore. I have no more energy. Your joints are going to break down. I fought hard enough. Now I'm going to attack you. That's what we call an autoimmune condition. So we've got an epidemic of autoimmune conditions. And so by decreasing inflammation, we're able to, combat chronic illness and decrease the chances of having an autoimmune condition. Improving our gut health. This is probably one of my favorites. One, because I've had some, gut health issues in the past, and I'll tell you, having a toxic gut or having an inability to be able to digest food or to absorb nutrients not only has a lot to do with your gut itself and, healthy bowel movements and things like that, but it has a direct impact on your brain, your emotional health, your energy. And so our guts are connected to our brain, and our brains are connected to our gut through what we call our gut-brain axis. And so juicing and more of a healthy raw food diet is amazing in short periods of time to help let the gut relax, to heal, and to not have to work so hard, right? So one of the things I was talking about earlier with chronic disease is that if I'm constantly feeding my belly and my gut all these toxic complex carbohydrates like French fries and hamburgers and all these different things that are really not good for us, and Fruity Pebbles, what happens is that our body just says, I'm going to create all kinds of inflammation and a leaky gut. And that has to spike the immune system all the time to have to combat that. And that leads to autoimmune conditions. So we want to make sure that we're really cleansing out and replacing that bad gut flora with a healthy gut flora. So we can do that by fasting, things like bone broth, things like really good healthy green juice, which you'll get in your challenge. Also malabsorption, like we just don't absorb the nutrients that we're taking in. I mean, how frustrating is it that you go to the store and you're spending all this money on all this healthy organic food, but yet your gut's so unhealthy you can't absorb the nutrients that you're trying to put in. Medications the same way. I mean, we're being prescribed all these medications, and half the time they're not being absorbed, and half our water supply is full of medications and supplements that we can't necessarily absorb. So we got to make sure that we have a healthy, good gut for good absorption. Nutrient deficiency. If I've got a leaky gut and I'm not necessarily absorbing, and my inflammation's super high, and I'm getting all these autoimmune types of conditions, like I'm going to have nutrient deficiencies. I'm not going to have adequate levels of vitamin D3 and vitamin C and A and D and K and all these things that we need, these B vitamins for energy and vitality. Leaky gut, chronic systemic inflammation. Like I said, if your gut's working super hard, it's super toxic, then your body is going to be in this chronically inflamed state. My joints are going to hurt. My gut's going to be destroyed. I'm not going to have healthy, conscious, vibrant thoughts. I'm going to be tired all the time. That you're that person that at midday I'm swinging by Starbucks to slug back a gallon of coffee. We don't need to be that way, right? We were never intended to be that way. And so I want to kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of like what is leaky gut and what are some things that we can do to help it. So over here, this is a normal gut lining. So this is the epithelial lining of your gut. You've got these things called microvilli that actually help to absorb the things coming in. And so in a healthy, normal gut, you're going to have what we call no gap junctions. So these gap junctions are really, really thin. And so things can come in and things can come into your bloodstream, be absorbed naturally. However, when we have a leaky or an inflamed gut, these gap junctions begin to spread apart. And what happens is these big protein molecules like gluten and things in our bread that we should be able to eat on a regular basis, but because our guts are so toxic, it inflames us, it makes our joints hurt. Things like milk and dairy and these big protein molecules like red meat, these things aren't bad for us, but whenever we have an inflamed and leaky gut, these big protein molecules pass straight right into the bloodstream without being absorbed and broken down. And then it takes my immune system and puts it in overdrive. I get food intolerances, right? These things create autoimmunity. These things called systemic inflammation. My entire body, my joints. Research actually says that leaky gut can actually create your joints to degenerate. This is called accelerated glycolytic end products. They call it AGEs. And whenever you're in systemic inflammation because of leaky gut, your joints begin to break down. The discs in your low back begin to fuse together. All these things begin to happen. Your hips begin to lose cartilage. And so we wake up one day, we're like, wow, I'm bone on bone. But really, it was because of years and years of damage to our gut and systemic inflammation. Obviously, one of the biggest factors and why a lot of people end up doing juicing or any kind of diet or nutritional program, unfortunately, is for weight loss, right? I mean, I would say this is kind of like, one of the people that strive after this, but really this is kind of like the least benefit that you would get from juicing. However, weight loss is great if we're overweight or we're more obese, okay? So the reality is that, like I said before, the National Cancer Institute actually says if you are a woman and you increase 2 pant sizes or 2 dress sizes, you actually increase your risk of developing cancer and chronic illness by 50%. I mean, overweight, obese individuals have higher rates of chronic illness, and they find that their blood sugar levels are chronically higher than the average population, which means they're going to have a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, they're going to have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, they're also going to have a higher risk of developing cancer and therefore dementia. And so just having a healthy body weight is huge. And if I have a healthy body weight, that means I'm absorbing things better. I'm going to have a healthier gut. I'm going to be able to go to the bathroom normally. I'm going to have improved digestion, more mobility of the food, meaning that my digestive system is working properly. I'm going to be able to do exactly what I need to do to absorb the nutrients I'm taking in and then rid waste when I need to. And I can detox in a healthy fashion, right? Individuals that are of normal weight, they can detox in a normal fashion without having to go through all the ups and downs, vice versa. What happens when I have a chronic inflammation? There's a couple things that happen. I talk about this a little bit, is this autoimmune condition. My body begins to attack itself, okay? And so if I have chronic inflammation and it's never turned off, it's almost like whenever you never turn the lights off outside your house. I left the lights on outside my house for my garage door for the past month, and then eventually the light burned out. It's kind of very similar if you're going to eat a very poor chronically inflammation in your diet. Your body is going to go through what we call autoimmune. It's going to say, I'm done with you. I'm going to now have to attack you, and I'm going to start to really make your life miserable. AKA 70% of our female population has some type of an autoimmune condition. Chronic release or not release of certain stress hormones, right? So things like cortisol, things like adrenaline, things that are good for your body, but whenever you have this chronic autoimmune inflammatory state, your body just goes into overdrive, and what is good and what was made to be put into your body for fight or flight sympathetic dominance is now just, hey, I just need whatever I can do to hang on. My energy's all over the place. And then increased sympathetic state. I talked about this a little bit. You've got two basically different types of nervous systems. You've got a parasympathetic nervous system and you have a sympathetic nervous system. Both are needed. One is rest and digest. The other one is fight or flight. And so when you're in an autoimmune condition, 9 times out of 10, you're in this fight or flight, foot's on the gas pedal. I'm constantly burning at both ends. I'm burning the candle at both ends. Like I'm exhausted. I'm doing all these different types of things. I'm not absorbing anything. My skin is a mess. My energy is a mess. I'm not sleeping. My spine is falling apart. I've got headaches. I've got cancer. I've got a high immune system. It's always on. Therefore, I'm always getting sick because I'm in this chronic sympathetic state. And I think, medicine lives here. 70 to 80% of the population that are taking medication, they're in this chronic sympathetic state. And if I dangle a pill in front of you as a tiger's chasing after you, you're going to think, Dr. B, why are you doing that? Put the tiger back in the cage. And that's what doing something like this, like a whole food juicing 5 essentials lifestyle will do for you. It helps put the tiger back in the cage so we can become more into balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic. And this is a best example that I can give you, kind of a teeter-totter. The parasympathetic, you're kind of over here resting and digesting. And in the sympathetic response, you've got, a tiger, a snake, whatever, chasing after you. And you can notice this guy's kind of on the edge. An individual who's in that sympathetic state, they're going to have anxiety. They're going to have depression. Their blood pressure is going to be through the roof. They're stressed all the time. They're not absorbing their nutrients. And so it can be really, really toxic to stay in this. And so I always tell patients that I don't want to be out of balance in either. I don't want to be always resting and digesting, but I also always don't want to be running away from the tiger, because neither are healthy. But it happens whenever we're in balance, right? In the 5 essentials and taking chronic inflammation out of your body, beginning to eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, juicing, rebuilding your gut, putting massive amounts of antioxidants to decrease that free radical production, things like chiropractic care to begin to take your nervous system out of that sympathetic fight or flight state is an amazing way to create balance and health and healing. Balance is where healing happens. And we talked about that earlier. What is health? It's an individual who heals well, somebody who adapts and recovers to those environmental stressors. Because here's the reality, stress is everywhere. If you can figure out a way to decrease stress, you're going to be a very rich man or woman, but it's always going to be there. So we have to begin to adapt to it and therefore heal and not be reactive, but be proactive in order to create balance. And so as we wrap up, I just want to give you some takeaways from here. Number one, get committed to make change. So as you're kind of going through our free roadmap that we've given you, make sure that you understand, take a step back for a second and kind of write down, why is it important for me to make this kind of change? And it can't be about weight loss. It can't be about feeling good. It's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be about your kids. It's got to be about your future grandkids. It's got to be about, I want to make a lasting impact on this world, and I can't do that if I'm sick, suffering, or dead, right? So we've got to take a step back, and I want you to write down 3 reasons why you need to be committed to making a change. And then setting some goals for yourself, because if you don't know why you do what you do, it's extremely important. It's almost impossible to be committed in anything. Number 2, watch all 3 of these juicing webinars. So if you're listening via our website or a webinar, click the link to access video 2 and then video 3. It's super important for you to stay tuned, because each one of these videos are going to follow suit from one another. If you're tuning in via Facebook Live, tune in next week as we go into video 2, and then the following Monday as well for video 3. Don't just take one and plug and chug. Commit to all 3 of these videos. And here's what you can do. Make sure you text JUICE. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you text JUICED, JUICED, to 44222. And what you're going to do is you're going to get your free juicing roadmap. So you're going to get basically a guide on what we're going to be doing and kind of an overview, and also gain access to that roadmap. And then also, just so you know, join the challenge, right? So, I'm going to challenge you, if you're listening to this, don't take this information and just get information. Apply this information in order to get transformation. Information plus the application equals the transformation. And so for 50% off, as you watch this video, make sure you click the link and get access, 50% off the actual challenge itself. It's going to run over the course of 28 days or whenever you want to start it. You're going to have access to juicing recipes. You're going to have a full nutritional program and exercise program, an amazing opportunity for you to get your health back on track. Also, if you're out there and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, I want to tell you, chiropractic and the 5 essentials has changed my life. But if there's one thing that I'll tell you that I would never go without, and it's chiropractic care. The brain, the spinal cord, the nervous system control health and healing. And if you want to be healthy and you want to heal well, the one system in the body that controls all that is the brain and the spinal cord. And so it's very, very important for you to be able to digest your food, for you to be able to do what you want to do, to heal your gut. That signal has to go from your brain down your spinal cord into those organs appropriately. And so at a limited time, 60% off your first visit at Revive. All you got to do is just on Facebook, click in the comments below, register for a new patient appointment, or if you're coming via our website through one of the webinars, you can actually click a link and it'll actually transfer you 60% off all the diagnostic testing that you would need to get your health back on track. Hey, until the next time I see you, I pray you and your family have a healthy, happy, blessed day. Bye-bye.